I think we're live. I think it's working. All right. So, test review. Again, we'll have the test tomorrow, and we'll work on it. It'll be like last time, where it'll open Friday, and you guys will have all Friday and Saturday and Sunday to work on it. But I don't know if anyone is here. Just play some solitaire while I'm waiting. All right. Any other questions with the study guide? Any of these that you always want to see done? Like I said, there's nothing really new for that. And Alex, the test will be open tomorrow at noon, and you'll have the weekend to get through it and get that done. And that's going to be it. Kind of like the timeline, though, unfortunately, because of the pacing getting all messed up and stuff like that. Yeah, I'll get to that in 1 second. Because the pacing's all weird and messed up, we're not going to be able to finish all the curriculum, unfortunately. So I have at the end of every single year for pre-calculus, it kind of goes alongside with Mr. Kim's like the 2-week review intro thing that he does. And I do a like end of the year, this is everything you need to know to be successful in AP Calc review. And I'm just going to move straight into that. And then each of our online lessons are going to be like we're going to do this section, and then this section, and this section, and then this section. And it's going to give us the ability to kind of at least review a little bit, give us information to be able to go over what's necessary. But there's going to be some sections on there that we may have to look at and review some of the videos. Because like when we get into the logs and solving for logs and stuff, we haven't gone over logs in pre-calc, and we may have to review some of that on our own to be able to do those sections. But I'll be sure to label everything appropriately, so it kind of helps with that. And I'll talk a little bit more as we get there. Okay, so let's look at, we said number 1 on version number 2. Awesome. So it says given, and we know that we have 2x over 5 minus x squared. That's my f of x. And then my g of x is the square root of 4x plus 1. So it says find f of g of x. So that means I need to take my g function and I need to plug it into my f function and then state the domain. So plugging it in, you get 2, the square root of 4x plus 1 over, and then 5 minus the square root of 4x plus 1 squared. Now simplifying that, we would get 2 times the square root of 4x plus 1, and then the square root and the square will cancel out, so you're going to get 5 minus 4x minus 1, which is 2 times the square root of 4x plus 1 over, it looks like negative 4x plus 4. So that's the simplifying, just plugging it in. That's the f of g of x part. Now, the domain part is we have to look for restrictions. Is there anything being divided? Is there any x's being divided? So the answer there is yes, right? So I know that that denominator cannot equal 0. And so I need to find what that's going to be. So I'm going to subtract 4, divide by negative 4. I know that x cannot equal 1. The other piece to this is going to be we cannot have a negative inside of a square root. So is there a possibility for us to have a negative inside of the square root? That's kind of like the question that we'd ask ourselves. And so right here, I need to make sure that that's not a negative. So I can take the square root of 4x plus 1. You take whatever's inside of that, so 4x plus 1, and you set that greater than or equal to 0. Now the reason why we say greater than or equal to 0 is because values that are greater than 0 are positive, equal to 0, so 0, those are not negative values, and so we're basically isolating all the negative values from our statement. So minus 1 divided by 4, you're going to get x is greater than or equal to negative 1/4. So we need to basically, the answer is the intersection of all of these different things. So, and I'm going to extend this out a little bit. So if I imagine number lines, here's the x can't equal 1. And then on top of that, I have the x is greater than or equal to negative 1/4. So if this is 1, then this is 0. I can say this is negative 1. So then this should be negative 1/4. It can equal that, and it's greater than or equal to that. So the intersection would be like, where do these overlap? And so they would overlap here. This is an open circle, and then they would overlap here. So my answer would be from negative 1/4 to 0, and then union from 0 to infinity. So because of that open circle here, that's why they do not overlap, which is why I did not include it in my solution here. What do you think about that, Jocelyn? Is there any piece to this that I did that was a little confusing? So the first thing I did is I plugged it in. Then the rest was all simplifying. Then finding the domain, I just looked for restrictions. We can't divide by 0, so that's one of them. I can't have a negative inside of a square root, so that's the second one. And then so I found those domains there. and then I made sure that I did the intersection of them so that I didn't miss anything or I accidentally included something I shouldn't have. But my one question would be, when do we know when to stop simplifying in the first step? That's a really good question. So, if there's anything obvious to cancel out or simplify, go ahead and do it. So, what I mean by that is, because this said a square root and a square was right next to it right here. So I had this square root and then I had a square right next to each other. Well, that's really just boop, boop. That's going to simplify. Right when that simplified, oh, I can combine like terms. So it's better to write it as 1/2 than to write it as 1 over 1 plus 1. Right? It's just a little cleaner. And so that's why I would go ahead and just go through and simplify that. On the top, though, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing nice and clean and obvious that we can do to simplify it. Yeah, so that's why I wouldn't do anything else. So usually when it's like things that are pretty right there for us to simplify, I would go ahead and do it. If, like, hypothetically, if this problem said, what if we had 2 times the square root of 4x plus 1 over 5 minus the square root of 4x plus 1? So if I had something like that and that square wasn't there, I actually probably would just leave it alone. You technically could make the argument that, well, you can't divide by a square root. How do you divide something into irrational parts? You can't do that. Yeah, you can make an argument for that. Yeah, you can go ahead and simplify that, but it's kind of wasted work, honestly. Like, and you're gonna see that a lot in calculus, where this looks good enough because there's so many other things that we need to be worried about. And the other thing is writing it into a form in which I can gather information easiest. I guess that's maybe another perspective, because if I left it like this, if I left it as the 5 minus square root of 4x plus 1 squared, and then I asked you what's the domain for that, you're going to spend extra time simplifying it to then find, oh yeah, it's just negative 4x plus 4 can equal 0. So why not write it in that form already, so then being able to access that information is a little quicker. Does that sufficiently answer your question, or does that kind of create like a million other questions? Perfect. Do you have any other questions, Jocelyn? Hey, I meant to ask, were you able to take the test? Because I know you sent an email saying that you weren't able to make it up, and I get like 20 emails a day, so I apologize if something like missed, but I had opened it to where you had extra time to take it. Did I ever notify you or not? Like, it literally just, the epiphany just came to mind right now. Okay. So, yeah, okay. So I didn't reply. I didn't let you know. That's my bad. So I'm going to give you one of two options. Actually, this is what I'm just going to do anyways. It doesn't even matter. So, do you want the opportunity to take it just to see what you would get? It's been like 2 or 3 weeks, so you probably forgot some stuff, so it doesn't matter. But I'm just going to give you full credit on that. But do you still want to try and take it to see? Because if so, and Alex, right now, I'll extend it through the weekend so you can give it a shot. It's like 7 or 8 questions or something like that. Great. Let me make the adjustment right now. Come on, Alex. Why are we thinking so long? Is my internet broke? No. Wow, that's super weird. It's like I click on the assignment and it just freezes. I wonder if it's my web browser. Let me try a different web browser. Sorry for the delay. I just want to make sure that this gets done. Perfect. Okay, so now it works on this web browser. All right, so extension change. You're going to have all the way through. Jocelyn, is through the weekend fine if I put it through Sunday night? Is that going to be okay? Or do you want longer? Okay. So I'm putting it through Sunday. Perfect. All right, so I just created the assignment. It's extended through there. Just let me know if it doesn't let you access it in Discord. I think that's the quickest. Sometimes the emails buffer, and because I get so many of them, I don't want to get lost, but 100% I'll get it every time if it's through Discord. So just let me know if you have trouble accessing it, and I can fix it like boom right on the spot there. So great. Well, do you have any other questions before? So it doesn't seem anyone else is on, so. Yay. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, like I said, it'll be released tomorrow at noon. So that's when this next little test, it's like 6 questions. It's no biggie. Um, yeah, that's it. So awesome. Well, if you have any trouble issues, just let me know in Discord. Other than that, have a great rest of your day and have a good weekend.